This is every SpongeBob episode that no one can solve. Starting off with the iconic season 1 episode, Rock Bottom, which immediately starts off with an incredibly eerie tone, as both SpongeBob and Patrick are hoisted away from the comfort of Bikini Bottom, and thrown out into this creepy surrealist landscape, which, I mean, of course, both SpongeBob and Patrick are terrified by.
I still can't read the sign! I want to go home!
Although, this is where something incredibly suspicious happens, as Patrick is able to get the bus instantly back to Bikini Bottom, whilst all of the other bus drivers are seemingly intent to keep SpongeBob in Rock Bottom forever.
I'll only be gone a second.
And with a stranger stealing his balloon and his chocolate bar, it seems like everything in Rock Bottom is designed to psychologically torture SpongeBob. I mean, come on, just look at that. That has to be intentional. With this causing many fans of the show to theorize that Rock Bottom is actually a trap, which is aided by all of the bus drivers to lure in many new fish that they can then mess with and eat. However, the true reason that no one can solve this episode is because there's so many different theories as to what this episode is actually about, with some people saying that Rock Bottom is a place for all of the tortured souls of Bikini Bottom who were once kicked out, and others even flat out believing that this episode is about SpongeBob being on a drug trip, and thus why he can't understand anything that the other fish are saying to him.
Excuse me, sir. Can you help me?
However, by far the most compelling theory about this episode is that it's actually all about SpongeBob's depression, which on the surface may sound wild, but honestly it makes sense, as even the town name itself, Rock Bottom, represents how SpongeBob feels at his lowest mentally, and all of his symptoms, including feeling constantly anxious, irritable, and nothing going his way, are representative of what depression feels like in real life.
I am 329th in line, and nobody forget it.
Although to this day, SpongeBob theorists are still arguing over what this episode truly means, and thus, it remains unsolved. And so, moving on, our next SpongeBob episode that no one can solve is Season 12 SpongeBob in Randomland. And trust me when I say that this is one of the strangest episodes of SpongeBob ever.
But ma'am, you can place an order anytime.
You see, right off the bat, this episode starts with a customer placing an order to Randomland, with Mr. Krabs then explaining to both SpongeBob and Squidward that absolutely nothing makes sense in this destination.
Where the laws of nature change randomly and the people are all cuckoo. Don't mean the Krusty Krab won't attempt to take their money.
But, of course, because Mr. Krabs loves money, SpongeBob and Squidward are then forced to go to this freaky hellscape, with their mission to deliver a Krabby Patty to 78 Screwball Street, which, of course, as you can imagine, isn't exactly the easiest task, considering the fact that even staying alive in Randomland requires you to be absolutely random. However, by far the creepiest and most memorable part of this episode comes when Squidward is trapped in by countless doors that all show him horrifying versions of himself, with the most notable version of these doors being a creepypasta version of Squidward, which, if you didn't know, comes from an alleged lost episode of SpongeBob called Red Mist, and in this episode, Squidward allegedly unalives himself. And this is where things get incredibly interesting, as SpongeBob theorists have stated that the entire SpongeBob in Randomland episode was only made in the first place so that the SpongeBob staff can confirm the Red Mist theory. Although, this isn't even as weird as it gets, as only a couple of days after airing this episode, the Red Mist version would be completely censored and replaced with a clean version, with this leading to fans of the show believing that there's something far more sinister at play. However, let me know in the comments, what do you think? However, of course, this means that this episode is still unsolved. And moving on, our next SpongeBob episode that no one can solve is Season 3's I Had an Accident, which, if you're a fan of SpongeBob, you'll know is one of the most hotly debated episodes of all time. With this episode starting with SpongeBob sandboarding down the mountainside before getting into an unfortunate freak accident, which, let's just say, looks like a real pain in the butt.
That's gonna hurt.
Do it again. I wasn't looking.
And this accident then causes SpongeBob to become a total recluse, whose intense paranoia makes him view any outside activity as potentially life-threatening. And thus, SpongeBob instead chooses to sit with his new best friends, which of course consist of a potato chip, a tissue, and a coin with the voice of an angel.
Take it away, Penny.
That Penny has the most beautiful voice.
And on the surface, you may be thinking, well, this isn't exactly an unsolved episode, as it's clearly saying how anxiety can take over your life and ultimately cripple your relationship with the outside world, right?
Wrong.
As you see, this episode only gets a lot more confusing from here, with Sandy and Patrick then planning to get SpongeBob to come out of his house by dressing up Patrick in a gorilla costume and getting him to pretend to attack Sandy, which they do so that SpongeBob will finally have to face up to his fear of going outside.
Even Chip knows that's Patrick in the same costume he wore for Halloween last year.
No, really! You gotta come save me!
Hey, Sandy. Who's your friend?
And that's all well and good until an actual gorilla appears wearing a Patrick suit and really does kidnap Patrick and Sandy before literally ripping SpongeBob in half. Which, I mean, boy, maybe SpongeBob was right to stay inside. However, this is where the episode takes a truly bizarre turn, as once SpongeBob asks how a gorilla can be underwater in the first place, we then see the gorilla fumbling for an answer in a British accent before then calling on his dear friend George, who in a rather strange twist is a horse himself. And not only that, he's a horse with a deep southern USA accent.
Well, it's funny you should... see, George, they're onto us!
Let's get out of here.
And of course, as you may expect, this has caused an absolute firestorm online, with countless YouTube videos, Reddit posts, and even mainstream media articles debating what exactly this ending means, with some fans of SpongeBob arguing that it ties into skin theory, which is a phenomenon where members of Bikini Bottom can sometimes wear each other's skin, with others theorizing that this ending shows that SpongeBob has completely lost his mind, and that the man in the gorilla suit, as well as George, are merely just figments of SpongeBob's paranoid imagination. But of course, let me know in the comments, who do you think the man in the gorilla suit and George actually are? And moving on, our next SpongeBob episode that no one can solve is Season 2's The Secret Box. However, before we get into that, today's video is sponsored by Aura. You see, as someone who spends a large part of my days online, well, I am no stranger to getting nefarious phishing attempts from people who are trying to steal my data, or even worse, my precious YouTube gold. And so, just like Mr. Krabs, I protect everything close to me by using Aura, as Aura gives me alerts when my personal info is found on the dark web, as well as giving me real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking. And if that isn't enough, well then Aura also offers 24/7 monitoring in order to keep my identity safe, with Aura also offering a secure VPN, an antivirus, password manager, and much more. However, in my view, the best thing that Aura offers is absolute peace of mind, as Aura provides up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. So please, do yourself a favor and go to aura.com/Harryfromends, and you'll get a 2-week free trial, which is enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your info from nefarious sites, all whilst you don't have to lift a finger. And of course, a massive thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to SpongeBob, the secret box starts in a simple enough way, with Patrick telling SpongeBob that he has a secret box and that no one else is ever allowed to look in it.
First, I have to put away my secret box.
Secret box? You never told me about your secret box.
Hey, hands off, Peepin' Bob. This here's my secret box.
And this begins the ultimate form of manipulation, as all throughout the episode, Patrick strings SpongeBob along by teasing the grand nature of what's inside the box, which he does all whilst keeping SpongeBob at an arm's length. And boy, this manipulation works perfectly, as SpongeBob becomes so desperate to see what's inside the box that he straight up breaks into Patrick's house and tries to steal it from him while he's sleeping, with this then leading to the second phase of Patrick's manipulation, which involves letting SpongeBob see what's inside the box, but hiding a secret component where there's a mysterious photo of SpongeBob inside.
Revealing one embarrassing snapshot of SpongeBob at the Christmas party!
And this is where the true mystery of this episode comes into play, as there have been countless debates online on what the actual embarrassing photo of SpongeBob is, with many people pointing to the fact that it may be offensive, and thus Patrick is holding it over SpongeBob's head as a form of emotional manipulation, with some darker theories saying that Patrick caught SpongeBob doing something illegal all of those years ago at the Christmas party, and now stays just close enough to SpongeBob so that he can financially blackmail him, with the secret box merely being a reminder to SpongeBob that Patrick completely owns him. Although, of course, let me know what you think SpongeBob is doing in the photo in the comments below. However, carrying on, our next SpongeBob episode that no one can solve is Season 1's I Was a Teenage Gary, which honestly might hold the record for the number of different theories spawned from one episode. You see, I Was a Teenage Gary starts off in a very normal way, with SpongeBob and Patrick leaving for a jellyfishing convention, and Squidward relishing every single moment that they're away.
I'm gonna do all the things I can't normally do because of SpongeBob.
Although boy, does this episode take a rather strange turn, as after Squidward realizes that he's neglected SpongeBob's snail Gary, this is where we get our first strange moment of the episode, as the usual Bikini Bottom doctor comes to check out Gary, but this time he has brown arms.
Here you go.
Aren't you gonna do it?
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm too squeamish.
With this being something that SpongeBob theorists, including myself, have been baffled by for years, with the only real explanation being that the writers of SpongeBob wanted to leave some more clues as to the validity of skin theory, although this is far from the only unsolved element of this episode, as after being injected with snail serum, both SpongeBob and Squidward would then turn into snails themselves.
Meow, meow.
With this then creating one of the most talked about Mandela effects in SpongeBob history, as alongside the SpongeBob transformation scene, there are some fans of the show that also swear that they saw a Squidward transformation scene, with others denying this and saying that it was only ever SpongeBob. And despite show writer Vincent Waller saying that the Squidward transformation scene simply doesn't exist, well, this hasn't stopped fans of the show from making their own fan edits of the Squidward transformation scene. But of course, all of this leaves out the most important unanswered question, which is, how can a sponge and a squid turn into a snail in the first place? Well, I mean, yes, on the surface, it's clearly the snail serum, but there's also a wide range of conspiracies about this segment of the episode as well, with theories online stating that this is a shared manic episode between SpongeBob and Squidward, or even that the snail serum was actually actually a heavy dose of tranquilizer or some other kind of poison that made the pair hallucinate the entire ending. Although for now at least, this episode remains unsolved. And so, before we get onto our final SpongeBob episode that no one can solve, our honorable mention is Season 2's Graveyard Shift, which has mostly made it to the list because of its incredibly strange ending. You see, throughout the Graveyard Shift, Squidward teases SpongeBob about the imaginary hash-slinging slasher, who Squidward states haunts the Krusty Krab at night.
Next, the phone will ring and there will be nobody there. And finally, the hash-slinging slasher arrives in the ghost of the bus that ran him over.
And, well, this joke would then come to bite Squidward right in the butt, as all of the things that he jokingly said to SpongeBob start actually happening, including the flickering of the lights, the fog appearing, and, of course, the monster bursting into the Krusty Krab. However, when it's revealed that this is just a young boy looking for a job,
I used your clarinet to unclog my toilet.
Huh?
Get away, get away, get out of here, you're not welcome here! Can I have a job application? I brought my own spatula.
well, then this turns the question to who was flickering the lights, with the answer to this being none other than Nosferatu himself, which raised a lot of questions from fans of SpongeBob as to how Nosferatu was even able to get to Bikini Bottom in the first place. Oh, and of course, how was he even able to breathe underwater? Although for now at least, the ending to this episode still remains unsolved. And so, for the moment you've all been waiting for, our final SpongeBob episode that no one can solve is none other than the iconic Season 1 episode SB129, with this episode starting off in a very familiar fashion, as Squidward once again loses his patience with SpongeBob and Patrick, with this then leading him to run away to the Krusty Krab and lock himself in the freezer.
Squidward! Squidward!
And if you thought this was a stupid idea, well, then you'd be right, as Squidward then freezes himself 2,000 years into the future, where he's then greeted and absolutely freaked out by SpongeBob and his 486 clones.
Are the other letters of the alphabet involved here?
Sure, all 486 of them.
And after Squidward completely breaks down and ends up in the prehistoric era, well, he then makes things far worse for himself by jamming the control pad on the time machine and literally ending up in the middle of absolute nowhere, with both time and space having never existed in this reality.
I may finally have found a place where I can be all alone.
With this segment of the episode spawning many different interpretations from fans, with some people arguing that Squidward actually died at this point and this is his personal heaven, and other fans argued that it represents a desire to shut himself off completely because Squidward is actually clinically depressed. However, regardless of the theories, this is somewhere that Squidward absolutely wants to escape.
I gotta get out of here!
And once Squidward does escape, well, then he's learned absolutely nothing by traveling throughout the infinite galaxies, as he then comes back to Bikini Bottom and remains his grumpy old self, with this being enough to encourage some theorists to argue that Squidward never traveled in time in the first place, and that instead, this whole episode took place inside of his head. However, of course, the mysterious SB129 episode remains unsolved. And so, this is every single SpongeBob episode that no one can solve. Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments, do you think you've solved any of these episodes?